It has begun!
I apologize, this is completely unedited. I'm giving it to you raw as I initially recorded it.
Tonight, I want to discuss the concept of freedom in the United States and how it's been so obtusely perverted. When I was a child growing up in the mid-'80s and '90s, we were told in school, America is the freest country on earth, which means you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. And if they didn't say it directly, they implied it and led us to believe that America's freedoms allowed us to do whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. No one reined us in on that. And that almost seems like some kind of fucking do what feels good hippie indoctrination, looking back on it. Fuck you, hippies. Okay, but going back to that idea of freedom. No. Freedom does not mean you get to do whatever the hell you want, whenever you want. I mean, okay, completely outside of reality, it does. Right now, I have the freedom to. No one is stopping me from launching myself over this 2-story wall and belly flopping on the pavement below. I have the freedom to do it. There is no law, no legislation, no human beings. There is nothing stopping me. I have the freedom to throw myself over this 2-story wall. But I don't. Well, that means I'm afraid of being free. Show that you know you should exercise your freedom. Well, a lot of times we don't exercise our freedoms because no matter what level of human development you are, there's some level of self-preservation and cost-benefit analysis. You, right now listening, by all means, you have the freedom. If you're sitting at home to refuse to use the toilet, you have the freedom to sit in that spot and just shit yourself and piss yourself and just not do anything about it. You have the freedom to do that. So do it. Just piss and shit where you're sitting. Don't be a slave to the toilet, brothers and sisters. Exercise your freedom. Exercise your right to piss and shit where you want. Oh, and but you don't, right? You continue to use the toilet. Why? Because the cost-benefit analysis, the cleanup, the smell, the shame, the personal discomfort is all things you'd rather avoid. So you continue your slavery to the toilet. But that's the point, is where does slavery begin and freedom end? To paraphrase Spider-Man's Uncle Ben, something through that indoctrination I mentioned, my generation and successive generations, as well as the hippies, totally forgot. With great freedom comes great responsibility. You see, because freedom is the will and opportunity to act without hindrance. It's fine, except when you act without hindrance and your actions affect other people in ways that are displeasing. Okay? Again, going back to I have the freedom to throw myself over this wall, but It's going to be a lot of cleanup. Customers walking by are going to be grossed out and freaked out and traumatized, especially the children. And the EMTs don't want to scrape a body off the concrete after a 2-story fall. I inconvenience a lot of fucking people. Not to mention myself, which is why I don't do it. But that's the point, is when you indulge in freedom, you have to take on responsibility, because the less responsibility you take, the more probable you will create unsavory effects for the people around you. And this is why freedom is not free. Freedom comes with a cost. Responsibility. And I see far too many people, like I said, still indoctrinated from childhood about, well, I just want to be free. Free? How? I want all my bills paid. I want $2,000 a month spending cash just for me. And I don't want to work. So what? You want all what? You want what? You want what? You want to sit on your ass watching Netflix and playing video games and eating chips for the rest of your life? What kind of freedom is that? Like, shit. But then that indoctrination started when we were in kindergarten. You live in the freest country in the world, which means you can do and be anything you want. Well, see, children perceive that reality differently than adolescents and different than adults. If you tell a child, like, on their birthday, all right, you have the freedom to do and be whatever you want. They're going to be Superman. They're going to throw food everywhere. They're going to eat nothing but candy. They're going to shit in the middle of the floor. They're going to destroy everything, paint the fucking walls. They're just going to wreak absolute havoc on the family abode. And so when you're told that as a kindergartner, first grader, second grader, third grader, that's what you think. Oh my God, it'd be so cool if I didn't have to listen to my parents and I could just spend all day, every day at the playground, But by about 4th grade, they just completely cut us off with the whole America and freedom shit. So we didn't hear about it, so we didn't think about it. So that initial reaction to it that happened over and over again, that child's mind reaction to that doctrine, went to our subconscious, tucked away in our subconscious, and festered and festered and festered. And maybe once a year, they'd bring it up. And the only recall then that we had of it was, I could play at the playground all day and just fucking, drink Mountain Dew and play video games. America will let me do that because I'm free to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And so, because it was so indoctrinated when we were children and couldn't develop a healthy understanding of it, and then we were cut off and given just enough to remind us of what we initially perceived it to be, it sunk in deeper and deeper and deeper. And so now we have generations upon generations of people that fucking live this way. There are women I've seen in my life, and some men, who get so pissed that they can't live the eating nachos, watching movies, playing video games, and not working lifestyle, that they will go out of their way to procure disability so they don't have to work and they can actually live that lifestyle. It's horrific. But you see, as per such, most of us were never taught what the Constitution really does. The Constitution and its amendments, like the First Amendment, freedom of speech. Second Amendment, freedom to bear arms. Oh, it's third. Freedom of religion? I don't remember, right? Well, those freedoms enshrined by the Constitution and the amendments are the freedom to act without government, without direct government intervention. Let me explain. The government has no right to pass any legislation stopping anyone whatsoever from ever purchasing a gun. The store owner, however, if you come in drunk trying to buy a gun, or you come in pissed off trying to buy a gun, he has the right to deny you, because like, yeah, you're not in a stable condition, I'm not going to sell you a firearm. But when the government steps in and passes legislation demanding that, they've usurped the Constitution. Now, you can bear firearms, but that does not enshrine your right to shoot people. So the police do have the right, if you shoot someone, to procure evidence, take down stories, and decide who's at fault. Because the Second Amendment just says you can own a gun. It doesn't say you can own ammunition, and it doesn't say you can shoot people. It just says you can own a gun. Unless there's some line where it says for personal protection, I don't know. I haven't looked at the exact amendments. But that goes back to the freedom of speech. There's supposedly this battle of freedom of speech with the internet and social media. Before I get into that, because that's cumbersome, there was a case a couple of years ago that tickled the borders of freedom of speech and freedom of religion. When the bakery owned by a staunch Christian family had some gay customers come in, and they wanted to purchase a wedding cake, a special made wedding cake from this Christian family's bakery, and they're like, I'm sorry, we don't approve of homosexuality, we won't make your cake. No, they didn't say the part about the homosexuality, they just denied the services. They're like, I'm sorry, we can't help you. Now, this gay couple said it was infringing on their freedom of speech to deny them that cake because they wanted a bunch of like homosexual slurs and fucking artwork all over it. The family argued that it was a violation of their right to practice their religion freely if the court made them prepare this cake. Here's the problem, kids. Between two people, that's a personal dispute right there. The fact of the matter is, like I said, the Constitution enshrines us from the government telling us what to do with our speech. Enshrines us from the government telling us how to practice or go about our religion. And in that one case, whatever the ruling turned out to be, I don't remember. The government dictated to citizens of the United States how to worship and what they could and could not speak or communicate. Probably didn't think about it that way, did you? Right. Yep. Because, see, there was no material or personal damages. or any kind. It was, I want this from these people, but they won't give it to me. Like a fucking spoiled brat. And the people are like, yeah. We told them no. We're a business owner. We have the right to refuse service. But some sadistic fuck lawyers were like, well, why did you refuse service? Because it's against our religion. Well, that's not a good enough reason. Wait, you're the law. You are a representative of the government telling me how to practice my religion when it's not harming anyone? You just crossed the line. But let's go back to that freedom of speech thing. How about it? Again, Facebook is a corporation. It is not part of the government. And the Constitution enshrines your free speech as per the government cannot tell you what to speak, when to speak, or how to speak. Facebook is not part of the government, so you're not protected against its speech limitations. No social media is a part of the government. It is, unless there's some weird fucking, government chat sites and shit, then, if US.gov has a fucking chat room or something, then yeah, you should be 100% protected because it's a government chat room and the government can't rein in your speech by way of the Constitution. But non-government organizations, independent corporations, Facebook, AOL, Twitter, just like that baker, because he was a Christian, refused service. And even before the Christian versus gay thing, him being a business owner, he has the right to refuse service to anyone. Facebook is a business. Twitter is a business. The representatives of those businesses, those non-government corporations, have the right to refuse service to anyone for any reason. Obviously, that's a little outdated because of the interconnectedness of everything now. But let's go back to the idea of reining in speech and your choice to do it. Like me not jumping over this wall and you not shitting your pants. School I grew up in, the high schoolers went to lunch first, then the kindergartners, first graders, second graders, third graders, okay? And the high schoolers had 50% longer lunch, so some of them were still straggling when we showed up. Now, these are teenagers being groomed to be adults, and then there was faculty and their teachers and shit having lunch, which are adults. So these two social groups have certain expectations of behavior when the children are present. Now, say the kids haven't showed up yet. Two teenagers are fucking around, and they drop the F word. The faculty are going to come over and scold them. You know you can't say the F word in here. Well, there's no kids here yet. Yes, but if they were, that would have been a problem. And so, you can't say the F word in here under any circumstances. Is that infringing on his freedom of speech? Maybe. Maybe it is. But his are, like you said, there's no kids here. Well, that's like saying, on the internet, that you don't force anyone to read your comments, read your blog, whatever. If you post something on the internet, You don't force anyone to look at it. But then, like the teacher's saying, well, what if the children had been here? The other side's going to tell you, but the potential for someone to find it and come unglued by it is what we're worried about. Just like we had social media when I was a kid, it was called the bulletin board. Lots of businesses had them. And the employees would, post up notes like, rummage sale this weekend, this address, school play on this date, or put up, a little like card holder where you could take, the schedule of all the basketball and football games or something. But because customers and employees alike were the ones using that bulletin board, but they were not the owner of the building. The owner had the final say of what went up on that bulletin board. We never thought that was an infringement on our speech. We just accepted that it was proper decorum. But the fact that back then, you couldn't, get on a computer and write a blog and show it to everybody. If you wanted to write something and make sure a lot of people saw it, you published a book or put an op-ed in the newspaper. And even then, you wanted to put ads or, an op-ed or an article in the newspaper, that costs money. And they would edit it to be newspaper friendly. Is that an infringement on your freedom of speech? No. It's decorum. And even then, if you want to concede that it is an inhibition, or it inhibits your freedom of speech, let me go back to this point. The Constitution only protects you from the authority of the government, not independent business owners. And so, like I started out saying, through a great deal of indoctrination, hippie indoctrination, to believe that American freedoms mean we can do whatever the hell we want when we want. Legally, the Constitution and the amendments only protect us from government intervention. And when we sue someone, when we sue an independent party, whether it be an individual or a corporation, on the basis of any kind of inhibition of our constitutional rights, we are literally saying, we are literally asking the government, the representatives of the court of the government, to decide between two citizens who has more constitutional rights than the other. And as soon as the government does that, they have dissolved the Constitution, because they've done exactly what the Constitution told them not to infringe on people's rights. I can walk through the ghetto right now, or, a couple hours from now, 2 in the goddamn morning, crippled white boy screaming, "Fuck you niggers, I hope you burn." All kinds of racist and vulgar epithets. Functionally, there's nothing stopping me from doing that. I have that right. However, as as a fact of honor, I do not have the right to complain when a gang of thugs comes out and beats me to a bloody pulp. Again, the Constitution does not protect my freedom of speech when it comes into conflict with sovereign citizens. If it were cops thugging me out because they didn't like what I was saying, that's the government intervening, and that's illegal. Thanks for listening. This one ran long. I hope it
over?
turns your gears and maybe helps you think of things in a different way.